Maggie, are you there right now?
I am here.
Hi. So I see two birds up there. What can you tell us about Artichoke and Parsnip?
Well, Artichoke and Parsnip came to me last October from an aviary rescue, and you can tell by the names that they were part of a large group of vegetable birds. And I originally had 8 of them, and these are the last 2. And due to their coloring, I suspect they may very well be brothers. And I think they're males because there used to be a third bird with them who they got very protective of and started showing mating behaviors. And as soon as she's been removed, things have calmed down and gone back to normal. So the usual way we would determine gender for budgies with the color of the cere and that type of thing, because of their coloring, that doesn't work. So at this point, I'm making the determination that they're probably male, and they seem to be very happy together, and all that behavioral stuff has calmed down. So I may very well be right.
I guess we'll find out. And before we go any further, I do want to say, as we go, if you have any questions about any of the birds, whether Artichoke and Parsnip or any of the birds who come after, please type them into the Q&A tab in Zoom, or if you're watching via Facebook, you can ask by commenting on the video live stream there. That way we can address the questions as we go, just as we're going through and doing the interview. So I know you've talked a little bit about them just with that third bird. So are they a pair? Would they have to be adopted together, or?
I don't think they would have to be adopted together. It's not like they preen each other or do any of those other bonded behaviors. But I think it would probably be nice if they could stay together after what they've been through. And it would also, like, if we're wrong and one of them might not be a girl, or, if they might not both be boys, which I doubt, it might just be better to keep them together. And they've been through a lot, from the aviary rescue to seeing everybody else be adopted, and they seem to be pretty good buddies. So I would say they could be adopted separately, but I'd kind of like to see them go together.
Okay. And I am seeing some green in the upper left. Is that some food?
Oh, yes, that is food. So these guys do pretty well. They eat lettuce, kale. The stuff hanging from the top of the cage is cilantro. One of my personal favorites because it makes the house smell good. And on the other side, the far side of the cage where there's a lower perch, they have a piece of broccoli. And when we were preparing for this, I said, oh, they don't like broccoli. Well, guess what? They do. So it's how I displayed it. So they like it hooked onto the side of the cage, and they will lean over and nibble at it. So they do pretty good with that. And then they also eat Nutri-An cakes, and they eat a little bit of pellet and a little bit of seed. And for on occasion, or for training type things, a little bit of millet.
It's always really nice seeing that birds are getting a nice varied diet. Are these two hand tame?
No, they're not. And that's probably why they're still with me. From this aviary rescue, there were a couple who would come right away up to the bars of the cage and eat millet or broccoli from my hand. They got adopted right away, but these two are a lot shyer. I think they were a little older than the other ones were as well. So they are definitely not hand tame. And when we had the third bird in the cage with them, and I had to take one of these guys out because they were getting real possessive of her, and they were starting to go at it together. They're still calming down, and I'm not 100% trustworthy still.
Yeah, it makes sense. We did have an audience member who wanted to know, could we get a little bit more on the backstory of the birds? I know you mentioned an aviary rescue. What's the story on that? And if you were interested...
Mickaboo
No, keep going. Sorry.
Okay, sorry. So there was, Mickaboo was contacted in the fall of last year, and there was an aviary that had, I think it was something like 30 some odd budgies, 40 some odd finch, and a couple of other birds that needed to be rehomed. And so Mickaboo volunteers went in and captured the birds, put them in smaller cages. They went to the vet for checks, and then went to foster homes. So out of those, I was going to go pick up 3 or 4 birds, and I came home with 2 cages and 8.
I really wish it was more uncommon for us to have these large aviary rescues, but they do happen. We often get, and we're actually going to put a video link in the chat, specifically on the rescue that Artichoke and Parsnip are from, if anyone is a little bit curious about how something like that works, how it all works down. And right here, this is, you're kind of seeing the end stage of an aviary rescue once they're safely in foster homes, are getting on a good diet, and are hopefully going off to forever home soon. I do see some toys. Do they have any toys they particularly like?
Yeah. So they like their swings. They have 2 swings in this cage. They have a mirror that is on a plastic ring, and both of them pivot. And it's funny to watch them because one will get up on perch on top and one will get on the perch below it. And then sometimes one of the birds disappears and he climbs between the 2 rings. But they don't fight over it. It's like they're sharing their toy. It's really cute to watch. And then at dinner the other night, they're on my dining room table. They were, so we were eating in the kitchen, and I heard this funny noise that kind of went, and it was like, my goodness, what was that noise? And I look, my dog's, right there. It wasn't him. And I hear it again. And they have a little toy that has a mirror on it, and it's got handles like it's a clock. And it makes that noise when they spin the handles. And I don't know that they'd have ever done it before. And so it was really funny. So they've got a new one there to play with. And then they've got rings. And they've got another one with the mirror on it. So they spend a little time playing with the mirrors, but since they have each other, they also aren't like dependent on it. Like if you had a single budgie, you'd give them a mirror so they'd have a companion. Because we like our budgies as part of a flock, and that would mimic it. But so they do play with the mirrors a little bit, but they really like the rings and this other spinning thing.
Yeah, so something of note that you just touched on very briefly, budgies are very flock oriented. At a minimum, we really do want them in pairs. Like if you already have a budgie and you want a companion, you can adopt a single budgie. But if you don't have any other birds, we do generally require you to have to adopt at least 2 budgies. That said, I did want to ask, do they need any special care or have any special requirements?
The only thing really for budgies is that when you choose a cage, you really want to have a cage that's longer than tall. If you can do it, the longer the better, because that way they can fly. I grew up with the cage that was round and fit in the corner of the room, and that was what you bought in those days. And now I know better that you want to have a longer cage so that they can actually fly in it. And so these 2 are actually in a flight cage. It's about 40 some odd inches tall. There's just enough room above it that I can cover them at night and not hit my chandelier. And actually it's a new chandelier, and that was how we figured out where to put it, was I needed to be able to cover a bird cage. So this cage is about, like I said, 40 something inches high. It's about 40 something inches long and about 18 to 20 inches wide.
That sounds like a really nice cage for them, and it seems like they're enjoying it, because I know during setup they were flying right through along, and now of course they decide to sit perfectly still.
And the other thing in this cage that's great is that they've got one of those Boeing perches that's like a spiral, and that provides endless amusement as well as access from A to B without having to go back and forth.
So before, I think we're about wrapped up here. So before we go on to see another bird, do you have any fun stories about these 2?
I think they're starting to really come out of their shell since they don't have a female to argue over, and they're together. And it's funny when they start talking, one of them gets this really blocky little head and he chatters away and like he's the boss and he knows everything. But it's funny because when I talk to them, the other one will tilt his head like he's really, really listening to what I have to say. And it's just funny watching the personalities of them starting to really come out. And this has been, what, eight months maybe now since I've had them. And I think without the others around, their true personalities are really starting to show. Actually, they're listening to me now.
That honestly sounds fantastic. So thank you very much, Peggy.